Hello students, this is Hardik sir, and now we will be starting our part 2 of third lesson Geography, our changing earth from standard 7. With part 2 we will be discussing exogenic forces, as we have already discussed about endogenic forces in the first part. You will have seen the summary at the end of the first part. So that occurs beneath the surface of the earth. So the actions which occur beneath the surface of the earth are known as endogenic forces. We have already completed this video. If you have not watched this video till end, I request you to go through it once again and also keep reading your textbook. With this part we will be starting from exogenic forces that occur on or above the surface of the earth. So these are the agents. There are number of agents for this removal and deposition to create the new landform, but that occur above on or above the surface of the earth. So the main elements of exogenic forces, as you can find, they are air and water. So the fast blowing wind, fast blowing movement of air, we can say, that makes some changes on the surface of the earth. The fast running water also makes some sort of changes on the surface of the earth, and they are known as exogenic forces that keeps on changing the face of the earth. So this is what we are going to see with this first video. You will find the same title, major landforms, on the page number 15 of your textbook. The landscape is formed by two processes, and those processes are weathering and erosion. You will find the definition in your textbook as well. We will be discussing it here. So weathering simply means that it's the breaking up of the rocks. So breaking up of the rocks has taken place. That means it's only weathering. That can be affected by any means, that can be made by fast blowing wind or can be fast running water also. So those agents we will be discussing later on. But what exactly weathering means, that is the breaking up of the rocks on the surface of the earth. Next you will find about the erosion. So what exactly do you mean by erosion? So erosion, that means the removal of solids in the natural environment. So when in the first part you will find weathering, that means the breaking up of the rock that is broken, and the second activity that occurs, that is of the removal of those solids. So after being broken up, they are removed, and that process of removal is known as something erosion. So it usually occurs by number of ways, that is by wind, water or ice. So there are agents, different agents which work for the erosion: wind, water or even ice. So first in your textbook you will find the title of work of river on page number 15. I request you to go through the textbook also and you will find the same title. So we will be first studying about the river. On the same page you will find the picture, that is figure 3.4 of waterfall. You can find the features of river. We have number of features of river. We will first summarize all of them. We will first discuss what we are going to see in the upcoming part of the video. So you will find that we will have waterfall, meanders, oxbow lake, floodplain, levees and even delta. So there are a number of features, they are made by rivers, and we are going to discuss all of these in the same video. These all definitions, all explanation is given in your textbook, and these are all the main important parts of these exogenic processes with the work of a river. So you may be asked as a question, important short note, the work of a river or the features made by river, even with examples you need to go with, even with the definitions you need to go with. So first we have the waterfall as given in your textbook. So waterfall is a place where flowing water rapidly drops in an elevation as it flows over a steep region or a cliff. You can find what is a steep region or a cliff. So here you will find this height that is known as steep. That is a cliff region. You will find that is a steep region. I want to say that you will find a vertical rise, sudden vertical rise from the surrounding land areas. So here in the path of the river, there is a sudden, you can find there is a fall of the landform, and such landform occurs, and because of such landforms the water has to fall from the great height, and such fall of water is known as waterfall in a simple terminology. So waterfall, how they are occurred? So waterfall are often formed where a layer of harder rock overlays a layer of softer rock. You can find in the picture the layer of harder rock up to this particular part, and you will have a softer rock. So this is the flow of the river as you can see in the picture. Now over a period of time, after a period of long years, now what happens? Over a period of time the scenario changes. So as the river passes over the softer rock, it is able to erode it at a faster rate. and that forms a steep in the river bed. So as in this particular part, you can find that this particular part has been eroded. As you can see with the previous picture, you will see that there was no erosion. The water was moving in the same way, same layer, but over a period of time you can find the change, that it has formed a steep. Now there is a steep you can find, but that steep also gets greater. Over a period of time you can find the force of hydraulic action does two things. The further erosion makes the plunge pool, that this is plunge pool and notch, bigger over time. So this becomes bigger over a period of time. In the previous picture you can find that it was not so big, but with the next picture you will find that after a period of time it has been now very big. Now the question arises about this base, would this be able to sustain or not? So next picture you will find that there is a crack, you will see more closely if you can. So it means that this part is not now able to bear the flow of a river, and over a period of time what does it happen? So as the notch grows, eventually there isn't enough support under the harder rock. Now there is no support, you can find here there is no support under the harder rock, and so it collapses into the plunge pool. So now it collapses into the plunge pool, and the scenario would be something like this. So the process of erosion continue, further eroding out the notch and the plunge pool. Eventually the harder rock above will collapse again, meaning that the waterfall will retreat upstream over time. So now this scenario is something like this. Now the waterfall has already created, but it has taken a long period of time. Okay, so next we will find the same picture as it is given in your textbook. The harder rock, the softer rock undercut by the power of the water. So softer rock, that undercut, that wants to say you that it has gone through the erosion, and because of that there is a plunge pool creation, and then the harder rock also collapses. All these things have been already taken place. Now you can find in, do you know, you are also given with some information that there are thousands of small waterfalls in the world. The highest waterfall is Angel Falls of Venezuela. So you have to learn this, also an important question, maybe for MCQ or even the objective types of questions. Highest waterfall is Angel Falls of Venezuela in South America. The other waterfalls are Niagara Falls, located on the border between Canada and USA in North America, and Victoria Falls on the borders of Zambia and Zimbabwe in Africa. So all these names are very important. You must go through these examples. They may be very useful. You are also helped with the picture of the Niagara Falls on page number 15. You can find in your textbook itself. Now the question arises, why do river curves? So the same you are going to see. You have a picture of figure 3.5 on in your textbook on page number 15. So as the river enters the plain, it twists and turns, forming large bends known as meanders. Now what are meanders? So the river enters the plain. You can find here the river entering the plain, and in this picture you can find some twist and turn of river. Such large bends are known as meanders. You can find a snaky movement like this of river, and such snaky movement is known as meanders. So in this picture the meanders are clearly seen. Rivers cause change on the surface over which it flows. So there are some sort of changes in the river bed itself, on the surface itself where it flows, you have already seen. So meander, it is a snaking pattern of water stream formed by alternatively eroding sediments from the outside of a bend and depositing them on the inside. So it keeps on moving, and because of that movement there are a number of changes, and those changes keep changing the landform. And that's what we are studying about the major landform, the change of the earth. So meanders, as you can find in the picture also. Next feature you will find that is of oxbow lake. So what is an oxbow lake? As you can find, due to course of time, the meander loops cuts off from the river and forms a cut-off lake, and that cut-off lake means oxbow lake. So where there is a cut-off lake, so here you can find the main stream like this, but over a period of time with this part you can find there is no move, correct? So here you can find that there is a lack of that flow, and this particular region is known as oxbow lake. How the name was derived? In this picture you can find the oxbow pin, which is used for ox and bullocks, so that keeps them in a place. So the main stream of river is cut off, so the main stream of river you can find is cut off from this particular part, and that's how the oxbow lake is created. Next you will find about the flood plains. A flood plain is generally flat area of land next to a river or stream, and it stretches from the banks of the river to the outer edges of the valley, and floodplains are natural flooding outlets for the river. So when that particular flat area is very near to the river or stream, and that's why when the flood occurs, this particular water level of river just just spread through the surrounding areas, and that's when the floodplain is occurred. You can find some more information about the floodplain when river overflows its bank. So these are the very close areas while flowing to the river, and when it overflows to the banks, it leads to the flooding of the neighboring areas. And as it floods, it deposits layer of fine soil and other materials called sediments along its bank, and these lead to the formation of floodplain. So because of the flood on the plain that is created, that creates the floodplain. So this is what we have already studied in 6th standard also, but for more information we have been given this in the 7th also. So when river overflows its bank because of the heavy rainfall or whatever the reason is, when it overflows its bank, it leads to the flooding, and such a flooded plain known as floodplain. Levees is the next part which you need to learn, which you need to understand very clearly what happens exactly in this scenario. You will find the figure ABC in this particular picture. During the floods, water slowed at banks and silts are deposited. So in figure first you can find during the flood when the water first slowed at banks. So here you can find some upliftment movement with the figure A. Next, figure B, what happens in between floods, slow moving water deposits a silt in riverbed. So this second figure itself says that there is a deposition with this particular part. As you can see here also there is a deposition, as well as this new part also has increased. You can compare with figure A and figure B. There is a difference. The new part, the new river bank area is also getting higher. Next, with the figure C, you can find it has been very high. So with each flood, the levee are built up. So these are the levee which are built up after a long period of time. River may flow well above the level of the floodplain. So now this is the part you can find. So it has also now increased. So floodplain, now this distance, the difference you can find between the actual region, that has now been very decreased because of this increase. So this is what we can say in simple terminology that are known as levee. But in times of flood, a river may overflow its banks and spread over the floodplain. As it does so, it loses energy and deposits its material across the floodplain. So what happens when the river overflows? It slows down here, deposits its material here on both the sides of river bank, and this is how a wall is built. A natural wall is built, and this natural wall is only known as levees. So you can find here embankment word is used, which are called levees. So these are the areas of embankment. So you can find in the next picture very easily. So here you have the picture of levee. You can find that this is the natural area that is higher than the river, that has been built by the river itself when it has overflowed in the past years. So this is how the levees is created. The raised banks are called levees. In the 1 mark definition you have the easiest answer available, the raised banks. So here you can find the raised bank. So in this picture, this is the area of raised bank, and that is known as levees. As the river approaches the sea, the next what we are going to see about, we have in this particular part, as the river approaches the sea, the speed of the flowing water decreases and the river begins to break up into a number of streams, and those streams are known as distributaries. Now what are those, we will find here. So as now the river is about to approach the sea, so when it is about to approach, the speed of the river, the velocity of the river decreases. Means now it gets a sluggish flow, very slow flow, and because of that it starts being distributed in number of streams, and such number of streams are known as distributary. So these are all distributary channels. These are all distributaries. They are number of branches of river, and they are all known as distributaries. So and when such things happen, they are known as deltas. So this is the part which we know as a delta, we have already studied. So this is how the deltas are formed at the mouth of a river, where the river flows into the ocean or other water body. When a river carrying sediments reaches a body of standing water, its velocity is reduced, and this is how the sediments, nutrients or silt, clay whatever the river has brought with it, it starts depositing them in this particular delta region, and over time these sediments builds up to rise above the surface of water, and this is how ultimately the delta regions are created. They are very fertile regions. You can find the picture of Bay of Bengal delta. Here you can find the deltaic region of Ganga Brahmaputra, which is one of the fastest growing delta region in the world. Now we have the next part, that is features made by sea waves. As we are studying about the water, so in your textbook on page number 16 you will find the work of sea waves. You are also helped with a picture in which you can find sea caves, sea arc, and even the stack. So this is what we are going to see in this particular part. So we are going to see the number of features. There are 4 features: sea caves, sea arcs, stack, and sea cliff. So what are those? So we have first definitions of each of them along with the picture also. Sea caves, they are the continuous wave action of the sea erodes the rocky surface, rocky faces on the seashore to form caves. So here you can find, if I just zoom it, you can see how because of the continuous erosion in this particular region a cave is created, and when that cave becomes bigger, means because of continuous erosion by the waves of sea, the tunnel like structure is created, and that tunnel like structure, as you can see with the below image, is known as a sea arc. Here you can see with the sea arc that first it was like a cave, but after the continuous erosion it has become sea arc. You can find with the definition that over a period of time the sea cave converts into sea arc with increased erosion in the rock. So the such a sea arch is created. Next we have stack. Stack are formed when part of a main landform is eroded by water action. Means now what happens over a period of time, suppose if this roof is removed, if there is no roof like this, so only this wall like structure is only left, as you can find in this picture, and such wall like structure is known as stack. So these are very important definition, you must learn this. Work of sea waves can also be an important short note. Then we have sea beaches. You might have visited such beaches. There are beautiful beaches in India also. So if you have seen those, so you can find how does it create. So sea waves leave behind sediments in the form of fine sand at these places are called beaches. So sea waves, when they arrive to the surface, when they arrive to the shore areas, they leave behind sediments in the form of fine sand, and such creation is known as beach, and there are the sea beaches you can find in the picture. Now we will be studying all these 4 by the different ways. So let's have the first, that is sea cave. How it is created, you can find the continuous flow of water that erodes the surrounding rock areas, and that is how the sea cave is created. Because of the erosion you can find there is a removal of the rock, but it is not created overnight, it also takes a long period of time. You can find the picture of a sea cave, also known as littoral cave. Littoral means a place that is near to sea. So is a type of cave formed primarily by the wave action of the sea. So because of the continuous wave you can find there is a erosion in the rock, and that's how the sea caves are formed. And that primary process you can understand, that is purely and purely only that is erosion. Then you can find the sea arches. So sea arches, how does it occur? So because of this cave, as you can see in this picture, so these caves have now become very big, and bigger when it become, then only the roof of the caves remain. As you can find here, only the roof is now remained, and this is now the open area, and that is known as sea arches. Over a period of time erosion breaks the roof also, as we have seen with the first part. So that also removed. Now the roof is also removed, and these wall like structures are now known as stacks. So you can find there has to be a roof like this, but now there is no roof. So this wall like structure you can see in the picture, they are known as stack. Now the next part is cliff. The steep rocky coast like this you can find in this picture, the steep rocky particular part which is higher vertically from the surrounding sea region. So such higher region, sudden growth of landmass is known as cliff. You can find the definition again. The steep rocky coast rising almost vertically above sea water is known as sea cliff. The sea waves deposit sediments along the shores forming beaches, that we have seen in the previous part. Now we are going to see something about work of ice. The same you will find on page number 16. You are also helped with the picture of a glacier in your textbook, that is the figure 3.8. Just keep your textbook along with you and keep listening, keep watching, and if possible then also keep reading your textbook together. With the work of ice, first you will find about the glacier. You would have studied about the glacier in junior standards. You know that is the river of ice is known as glacier. So in glacier what exactly happens? The accumulation of snow that are formed in areas where the amount of snow that falls exceeds the amount that melts. So now the reason this amount of snowfall that is more than the amount of melting of snow. So that's why you can find such river of snow, and that is known as glacier. So glacier form distinct landforms that looks like frozen river moving slowly over some land surface or down a valley. So it keeps moving very slowly, but because of the movement there is also a process of erosion, that means the process of removal, and also the process of deposition included in the same part. How does it happen? So glacier, that as you know, that is a mass of ice moving slowly over some land surface or down a valley, and that is formed over a long period from the accumulation of snow, where the amount of snowfall is more than the amount of melting of the snow. Now what is the glacial moraine? As you can find the definition at the end of the page number 16, the material carried by the glacier such as rocks big and small, sand and silt gets deposited, and these deposits form glacial moraines. So how does it happen? You can find with the next picture itself. So moraine is a sediment deposited by a glacier. How does it happen? You can find here, first the action happens of plucking. You can find here, if I zoom it for you, so plucking occurs here. The plucking, you can find the action means you can find the arrow like this. So it shows you that the plucking action first happen. Plucking occurs when rocks and stones become frozen to the base or sides of the glacier and are plucked from the ground or rock faces as glacier moves. So as with the movement of glacier by this way, you can find that these are removed, they are plucked from the ground, and such action of plucking ultimately that is known as removal of the ground, and that means that is the action of removal, that is the action of erosion. You can find here we are also given with abrasion. Abrasion occurs when the ice and its load of rock embedded into it. So because of this load, it works like a sandpaper. You can find here. So because of this sandpaper activity, it makes it smooth and polished. So the bedrock is smoothened and polished with the effect of such glacier, because the glacier keeps moving in this direction, and this ground level, you can find here the action of sandpaper is done, and because of that there is a plucking, and that's why it becomes very smooth. Next you can find medial moraine, that is a mass of rock carried down by a glacier at its edges. The same picture you can also find in your textbook. Okay, so now that is medial moraine, a mass of rock carried down by a glacier at its edges, and they are known as ultimately medial moraine. You can also find the arrow to denote you that what are the medial moraines. So this is what about the work of ice you can see. Next we have the work of wind. You will find the same title on page number 17 in your textbook, along with the picture of sand dunes like this. So here you have the picture of a sand dune, this is the picture of a mushroom, and also the deposition that is known as loess. So these are the three features created by wind. So wind flowing over a long period that creates such different forms of land, as you can see in the picture which we are going to see. So these are the features: mushroom rocks, sand dunes, and loess. So mushroom rocks, first we have an active agent of erosion and deposition in the desert, that is wind only. We know the fast blowing wind only changes the landforms in desert areas. In deserts, rocks in the shape of a mushroom commonly known as mushroom rocks. So you can find here the picture of a mushroom rock. They are created because of the fast movement of the wind. So here you can find the picture of mushroom rocks also. Next we have the sand dunes. They look like this. So sand dunes, when the wind blows, it lifts and transports sand from one place to another. Means because of the fast movement from one place to another, the sand has moved, for an example. And when the wind stops, so these sand particles fall in another area, means they are deposited with another part. So in such a way it keeps on changing. When it stops blowing, the sand falls and gets deposited in low hill like structure. They are known as sand dunes. You can find the picture of sand dunes. Next we have the loess. When the grains of sand are very fine and light, the wind can carry it over very long distances. So when they are very fine and also very light, then they can be traveled for a long distances by the wind. And when such sand is deposited in large areas, they are known as loesses. So such loess, you can find more number of loess. They are found in China. So here you have the picture of loess, as you can see. So this is the end of the part 2, but before completing we will find the difference between endogenic forces and exogenic forces. An important question for minimum of 2 marks. So first you can find that it occurs beneath the surface and it occurs above the surface. And you can see the second point, it causes natural devastation and physical change in the earth surface like earthquake, volcanoes and formation of mountains or valleys. So they are sudden forces, like examples are also given: earthquake, volcanoes and formation of mountains or valleys. You can find with the second point in the exogenic processes that it causes physical change in the earth surface like sea arches, mushroom rocks, seashores, even sand dunes. So these are the changes occurred by the exogenic forces. So this is the end of the lesson. If you have any query, any doubt, you can ask in the comment section. Thank you for the day. Keep learning, keep reading.